market and opportunity. We will support in training where we can and where it's needed. We know there's a lot of certification plans and blah, blah, blah. We all know that. Nobody really needs that at the upstart. So we will support that to make it as easy to enter this product series as possible. And we will help with POCs, the quoting, and even implementation where that could be needed. Last but not least, we will do it fast as we used to. Great service and precisely as well. I think that's all that needs to be said. I'll be back a little later with call to action before we end the session. Have a good time.
Great, thank you, Carsten. So there will be a little quiz later in the hour. So pay attention, and you might go home with something. Yeah. So with that, I will give the word to Neil, and Neil, just let me know once I should change the slides. This one I have on my own shoulders. So just a bit about us. We were founded in 2012 in November. We were coming as a CASB solution at first in the cloud, and then grew from there into becoming now a true and full SASE vendor as defined by Gartner. And that's now about 2,000 employees, a little bit 2,200, a lot of growth. Yeah, I'll just keep it to that. The team has just celebrated the 10 years. This is some of the pictures from that party and the birthday. And the founder is Sandy Berry, and it's founded in California. Neil.
Hi, Daniel.
Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. So good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining today. My name is Neil Thacker. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer for EMEA for Netskope. I've been with Netskope now almost 5 years. So half of that 10-year anniversary, I've been working for Netskope. My background is over 20 years experience in cybersecurity. Predominantly, I spent 10 years in financial services, companies like Swiss Re, Deutsche Bank, running security teams there. But in the last 10 years, I've kind of moved over to the vendor side, supporting kind of the technology and innovations around, again, cybersecurity. So I wanted to kind of start off today with a quick overview in terms of why Netskope? Why is Netskope so important? Why perhaps did I join the organization 5 years ago? And why are we seeing, again, so many organizations selecting Netskope today to help them with their security and network transformation? So Daniel, next slide, please. I think the obvious one is, where do we start, right? How do we help organizations? And from a very high level, this is what Netskope does. And it's great because this is the same mandate that most CIOs and CISOs, if you ask them, what is it about their role they have to ensure they do? It is all about enabling people to be productive and secure while working from anywhere. And of course, the last few years have definitely accelerated and enhanced that need for those last few words about working from anywhere. So we're focused on protecting people and the organization, their devices and their services, about ensuring that they can be productive. And of course, one area we typically focus on is, rather than just acting like a web proxy and just blocking large categories of websites, it's all about the granular risk-based data-centric controls that we offer. And these have been recognized by the industry, and it's the future of cybersecurity. And this is where people like IDC, for instance, have put us in the furthest top right in terms of the cloud gateway. They see us as that key leader. And again, Gartner, with their Security Service Edge, Magic Quadrant, have put us again in that top right, which is an impressive feat for an organization that's only 10 years old. But of course, we have aspirations to push the industry even further. And I think we've been regularly quoted by some of the leaders out there. There's some great quotes that we're perhaps the most exciting network and security transformation enabler that people have seen. And it's great validation for all the work that we do. But it's also great validation for all of our customers who really push us to be our very best. So if you're not familiar with SASE, then perhaps this is the next slide is probably the best summary that I've seen in explaining what SASE is. So in summary, it's all about connecting employees, their devices, but also infrastructure, and also moving into kind of servers, workloads, and even IoT. There'll be some upcoming slides around this in the near future around our IoT innovations here. So it's all about connecting those services, those entities, to the services on the right, connecting people to access the web, cloud, SaaS services, public cloud, looking at, again, even connecting people back into perhaps on-prem data centers, moving away from the need to VPN and backhaul traffic, and looking at how we can secure that connection to those services. But even looking at, again, how we do this. So one key aspect is that we have almost 60 locations across the globe where we'll have our infrastructure, our points of presence. We have 14 of those instances in Europe alone. So Stockholm, Vienna, Munich, Amsterdam, Manchester, London, etc., Frankfurt, Dusseldorf, we have locations in there. The goal for us is to be as close to the end user and to the organization as possible, to be the on-ramp to the internet, as we call it. So what does this actually offer? What benefit does this offer to perhaps a traditional VPN type model of connecting people back into services? But of course, as people are more dispersed, as people are, again, working from anywhere, the key is to ensure that wherever they are, they can connect to their nearest location, and all their security, their network capabilities, their performance will follow them. Okay, so this isn't requiring people to VPN across the globe back into a data center. It's connecting them to the nearest location and applying those security services. Now, the great thing is that cloud in the middle. This is the Netskope, again, security cloud. We have peering relationships with, again, web and CDN providers. We have cloud SaaS providers. We have peering relationships with Microsoft and Google in every location, AWS, Salesforce, etc. I think we're considered the third most peered network in the world, which is pretty impressive for a network and security network. So the goal here, again, is for us is to allow people to connect to their services any way possible. This could be through, again, a client that's installed on their endpoint, on their device. It could be that we utilize, again, IPsec GRE tunnels for traditional brick and mortar type locations. It could be that, for instance, connecting branches together rather than having to use MPLS lines and expensive private networks. It's about using things such as our SD-WAN capability here, our borderless SD-WAN. So there's a multitude of ways of connecting. Now, the great thing is, going back to our opening statement, enabling people to be productive and secure while working from anywhere, this ultimately allows this. And without having, for instance, the employee to have to make a decision, how should I connect to these services? What's the most secure way or the performant way possible? Again, from the Netskope Security Cloud perspective, it takes, again, the ideal, fastest, most performant route to that service. Now, the interesting aspect we see is that with SASE, it is becoming the largest total addressable market out there in cybersecurity. It's gaining recognition as the go-to modern architecture. As one example, I was in Switzerland last week. My last visit was to Switzerland was in, I think it was in February 2020, so just before pandemic. I asked a few people and an audience in terms of audience participation at an event, and the feedback was very few had heard of SASE. It was still a new term. I think it was only defined in 2019. Last week, I asked the same question, and nearly everybody put their hand up. Everybody had heard of SASE. And then when I asked the same audience it was just under 100 attendees, of kind of leading CISOs across that region who was planning to implement a component of SASE this year or next. And again, over 90% had their hand up. So we can see that organizations are moving towards this this cloud-based model of offering and connecting their services via, again, a SASE architecture. When we also ask the audience, so again, the next slide will highlight this, is that we have, I guess, two key stakeholders in the organization. We have, again, the networking team working to ensure that they can have, again, improve cost efficiencies for their network. So the example is SD-WAN. Migrating from MPLS to SD-WAN is usually a good way to show cost efficiencies. They're looking at this direct to modernization. So traditionally, this was called Beyond Corp, a model that was defined by Google, but many organizations are following this same type of approach. Again, with a dispersed workforce, direct to makes perfect sense. They're looking at optimized routing and path selection. So this is key if you're connecting to, again, if you're using infrastructure as a service, if your infrastructure is hosted in AWS or Azure, of course, you want the fast, most connected possible way to connect to those services without having to rely on, again, backhauling. They wanted redundancy, resiliency, availability. We have 60 data centers across the globe with a 5.9 SLA in terms of reliability and uptime. So again, they're seeing the benefit there of that type of capability. And then finally, looking at digital experience management. So how can you, again, optimize the end user experience? And we have a DEM capability built into our product that can show how people are seeing, again, a benefit of utilizing, again, the SASE architecture. And then from the security side, again, another key stakeholder, looking at how you're looking at identity and context to deliver those security policies. So the example is, again, utilizing, again, multiple series of authentication mechanisms, integrating with IDP services, and then putting in context such as, again, threat protection, data protection. One key aspect is something that we offer is around the instance control. So this is, for instance, looking at cloud services and identifying each instance. So the example is Microsoft 365. An organization may be heavily utilizing that service, but of course, every 365 instance is slightly different. So it could be you're working with perhaps a partner. It could be you're working with even a public or personal instance of 365. Each one of those instances needs to be recognized, and perhaps a variation of control needs to be applied there. If you're uploading confidential information to a personal instance of 365 or to a third-party instance of 365, you of course may want to put more stringent control versus your own corporate instance of 365. Having real-time visibility was key, and also tying this into risk management. So looking at items and variables such as data movement, confidential data, looking at how this is being moved to SaaS services as one example. So at Netskope, we have an inventory of 58,000 cloud services. Each one of those is rated from 0 to 100, and that can apply, again, a form of risk management or third-party risk management to the control. Looking at how we integrate with ecosystem partners as well, I'll come on to that a bit later on, but that's another area that, again, security professionals are demanding. And Netskope is built on an open system. So we can, for instance, integrate with EDR, SIM, IDP services, and we have built that capability into the product. And then finally, the key point, the last key point that was raised was around ensuring that employees are educated. So making risk relatable to them. So going back to that example of 58,000 cloud services, if you're putting a policy to say if somebody's uploading data to a cloud service that's perhaps considered high risk or has perhaps recently been breached or is undergoing a security incident, then of course you can educate the employee to recommend that they perhaps don't use that service, and perhaps there's an alternative corporate provided cloud service that they can use instead. So again, combining these security must-haves with the networking must-haves ultimately leads to that SASE platform, a SASE architecture that can meet the best of both worlds. And if you click, Daniel, everything is underpinned by zero trust. So our engine we have built into Netskope focuses on zero trust. So in summary, it's more than just, again, authenticating a user and providing a form of access control. It looks at the instance type of that's the cloud access that's being used. It looks at the type of service, how that service is being connected to. Is it a personal device? Is it a corporate device? We can even start looking at refining that least privilege access based on access to these services. And of course, we can also aid an organization who just wants to continuously monitor the use of activity. So for instance, we have a user entity behavior analytics capability that can look and identify, and in many cases can also highlight a potential security incident. It could be, for instance, compromised credentials are being used. It could be that the device is compromised. So we can take that activity and apply perhaps a block action. We can even educate our ecosystem partners to recommend that that individual is also perhaps moved into an isolated group or an environment where they can continue investigating the issue. So everything is underpinned by that zero trust engine capability we have. Now, of course, this may not be perfect right now for every organization. Many organizations may be on this journey, what we call this journey to SASE. And the next slide highlights this. So this is where we've seen organizations that perhaps move from a level 1 maturity. So where they had lots of people based in the office and they had data centers and they're using VPN and MPLS lines to connect to their networks. This is, again, a traditional model that perhaps we saw very commonly 20 years ago. Now, when I ask most people, again, at a conference or speaking to a CISO or speaking to a CIO, and I share this slide, most will say they're at kind of a stage 3. So they're utilizing SaaS services, perhaps they're cloud first. So all of their new services are cloud. They've extended some of their infrastructure to the cloud. They're utilizing a form of IaaS. And they're kind of negotiating and moving some of their components of their traditional network and security controls to the cloud to build that edge security platform. So that's where most organizations are at kind of a stage 3. As we move to the right, more organizations are, of course, adopting more cloud migration. They're moving more of their traditional legacy on-prem network and security controls to the cloud. And this is where they start enabling and utilizing, again, like cloud secure gateways and public cloud security with API connectivity. The goal for most organizations in the next few years is to move to the right. And this is kind of aided by digital transformation. And we're now at that age where digital transformation is becoming almost an old term. Most organizations will say in the next 2 to 3 years, they'll be in a digital era. They would have transformed many of their workloads, their processes, etc., to be, again, fully digital. So, of course, with that requires, again, an increase and a maturity around the network and security controls they have in place. So adopting things such as zero trust network access to access those services, moving many of their on-prem, perhaps data center-based firewalls to cloud firewalls, because that's where the majority of their traffic is going. And then, again, looking at how they secure their IoT, OT type devices as well within their organization becomes key. So again, it's a great slide. It talks about this maturity, this growth, where organizations perhaps are today and where the future is within the next few years. And this is where organizations will move to. I then wanted to kind of cover some of the key use cases that drive this. Now, there's usually, again, 10 key use cases we typically offer. So the first is around, again, looking at threat protection. So threat protection, number 1, if we click that, will show, again, organizations are looking to integrate threat protection into SASE. So this is looking at sandboxing. This is looking at browser isolation. This is ensuring that whatever they typically have seen, that they capture it on the wire rather than rely on the endpoint to capture this. And of course, this works hand in hand for, again, personal devices that perhaps don't have an endpoint agent installed. So threat protection is usually a number 1 use case we see. When we start looking at this again across the next few clicks, data propagation is number 2. So looking at controlling data, understanding where data is, where it's being moved to, which cloud services it's being hosted in, again, is a key differentiator most organizations require. 3 is looking at visibility and control of shadow IT. So we've seen this move away from organizations looking to just block shadow IT to actually allowing shadow IT. So looking at the business context around this. We then have 4, we're looking at controlling access and coaching users, coaching employees when they're accessing services. That's a common metric that we've seen as being really successful when a security team has presented this back into the board, how they've coached employees away from bad, high-risk services to services that typically the organization has approved. Again, it's a great metric that can be shared. And then 5 is looking at zero trust access. So providing, again, access to those internal apps and services without additionally exposing the perimeter. organizations we've seen are longing to move away from VPN because of the security challenges it offers, the ability for an organization, for instance, to be compromised because of lateral movement, or even again, a VPN service to be compromised because of a new vulnerability. We typically see those every month at the moment. So organizations are really looking to move to the zero trust access component. The next 5 will focus on specifically around, again, connectivity and network options and integrations. So number 6 is looking at securing access to BYOD and third parties. So providing, again, a third party or a personal device access to cloud services or cloud systems, or even into a network. We have, again, a great capability here in terms of our clientless private access component. 7 is around utilizing and connecting branches, breakouts, workloads, SD-WAN services. 8 is around tracking IaaS and SaaS compliance, so continuous security posture assessments of SaaS and public cloud services. 9 is the digital experience management capability, so the end-to-end performance, the monitoring, the ability to triage issues based on, again, perhaps a user suffering perhaps a poor connectivity to a certain service. So rather than them calling the help desk and logging this, again, it's monitoring, it's using data and data visualization to identify that the cause of this issue before it actually, again, becomes a big issue to the end user. And then finally, number 10 is the integration, facilitating that integration with the intel sharing partners and vendors that Netskope has those relationships with. And that last point, point 10, is, again, a nice transition into the next slide here. So this talks about, again, our key integrations and the services that we provide. Now, what is key is when we start looking at this integration model, you can see quite clearly Netskope here is being centerpiece. We have, again, great connectivity with the leading IDP services out there, the identity providers, looking to share information around, again, what services are being accessed, how they're authenticating, ensuring that authentication does occur, for instance, especially to shadow IT services. It could be, for instance, that we see a new threat picked up within our sandbox or within our anti-malware capabilities. And we can share that information through our threat exchange capability to the endpoint and the EDR providers of the world. Or even looking to integrate with SIM SOAR. Now, SIM and SOAR services typically pull data into their services, but of course, many will lack the context, the granularity of control of people accessing web and cloud services, especially if they're going direct to. So with Netskope, again, we can provide that additional layer of access to the SIM SOAR vendors of the world too. The next slide, we talk a little bit around how do we optimize and show business value. So for many organizations, if they're looking at SASE, how do they actually justify this? And it's key for an organization to focus on 3 key areas. So how they reduce risk, how they increase productivity, and how they reduce cost. So we have lots of great studies out there. We have a research paper. Daniel, if you build this slide, it will show the key percentages we've found with an organization that's moved to a SASE model. They've seen a huge decrease in security risk by that training, that education, that focus on threat and data protection. They've seen a performance improvement because of that direct to capability. And they've seen, a huge reduction in TCO because they're replacing appliances that are running in HA, they're optimizing their bandwidth consumption, and also they can use their own headcount, their full-time employees, for the things that matter, such as, again, monitoring security policies, those kind of things, rather than having to update and patch their services. So the business value with SASE is really one of the key driving aspects that we're seeing, and where CISOs and CIOs are looking to build that business case around these 3 key areas. And then finally, I wanted to finish off with a summary of the 6 key points and the key business outcomes that we see. So number 1, absolutely, is around improving user experience. It's becoming a more common requirement that we see. So just ensuring that employees in their organizations can access their services without having to get backhauled or hairpin back into a data center. 2, it's around enabling the use of cloud rather than just blocking access to cloud. And this is where we can do this, of course, with the inline cloud and the granular controls that I've mentioned around instance control. 3 is around data protection. So thinking about data protection, applying context-based policies to all of that traffic. It's really key for an organization to govern data use in the cloud, knowing where their data is, be it for a cross-border regulatory requirement like GDPR, or even if it's a case of looking at, again, where that data resides, if there is a compromise, if there is a breach of that cloud service, what data had been moved into that cloud service becomes key. Threat protection is an aspect we're seeing more organizations absolutely focusing on, specifically around blocking malware, drive-by, phishing attacks, etc., where cloud has been used as the platform of choice. The example is we now today see 47% of malware is actually delivered via a cloud service. So the cloud service is either hosting the malware binary or is being used to offer command and control infrastructure instructions, or again, in some cases, is even being used to exfil data by an insider or an external party. So looking at putting that threat and data protection control in line becomes key. Looking at managing and looking at cloud and third-party risk is another element. Again, we're seeing more GRC teams focusing on this. And of course, with Netskope, we can provide that full visibility into those 58,000 plus cloud services. Which of those cloud services is being used by whom, for what purpose, which data is being shared with them, becomes a key aspect as part of a GRC function and third-party risk management. And then finally, again, the other outcome is around reducing costs through that transformation. Especially as we enter into perhaps a time of economic instability, organizations are today looking at, well, how do they modernize their network without, again, adding on additional costs? So we work with many organizations today in terms of how they consolidate, they converge these controls, how they can align these with their ecosystem partners, and ultimately help with their TCO cost reduction. So with that, again, I wanted to kind of summarize and then hand over to Xavier, who's got lots of great further information on some of those new additions that we've added recently around IoT and looking at SD-WAN capabilities as well. So thank you for your time today, and I'll hand over to Xavier.
Thank you, Neil. Daniel, any words from you before I move on?
No, I think you should just crack on.
All right. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody from sunny Belgium. Alina asked me when we were looking at this presentation to give you a State of the Union. Well, as this is most of the time done after 1 year, it was a bit tricky for me because I'm not even here 1 year. So that being said, I joined in December last year, having spent, I would say, too long time with some other security vendors where I gained weight and lost hair. So I finally made the move to Netskope, and I can say that it was like a perfect storm. I joined, and 2 months later, we were named in the Gartner quadrant as being the SASE leader in the industry. And based on that, we saw I would say, a massive boom in demands about what it was Netskope could offer to their customers in order to help them secure their business. So as a State of the Union, I could say that, but you can move to the next slide if you want, Daniel. As a State of the Union, I could say that when I started, not even a year ago, there were 4 people in what I would call Northern Europe at present. And today we are 21, right? So we are building the business like crazy, all over the Benelux, all over Scandinavia, and into Eastern Europe. And we are doing this based on one, I would say, mantra alone, and that is that we do this together with partners, right? Alina will talk more about it. But there are four words I would really like to stand still on for a couple of seconds in this State of the Union, and that is A, the people. I do believe that we have hired, or we are capable of attracting the right people in the industry. For 2 reasons. Netskope is just a fun place to be. That's one. Second thing is that it's a technology that everybody wants to work with. So the demand of people that are willing to come and join to just play around with the technology and help our partners and end customers to be secure, it's just tremendous, and it's building up as we move on. The second thing is that the product. I mean, I can talk about this for hours. I mean, I've only been given 10 to 12 minutes. So, but the product itself, I mean, it does what it is supposed to be doing and way more, right? I mean, you saw Neil's picture about the cloud and everything funneling back through it, but you also did hear Neil saying that we keep control about everything we are doing. from the moment it leaves the, I would say, end user location all the way to the final destination. So for people that are technical, I'm going to stay away from using acronyms, but there is one word in using SASE we're all afraid of, and that is the lack, or that is the appearance of latency, right? For those of you that will find the time to play around with our products, latency is a key thing, and I can tell you that you will be surprised when you play around with the Netskope products, because like I said, we are not making statements like, hey, it left your location, it enters the hyperscaler, it was green until that very moment in time, whatever happens after that point in time is not our responsibility. The way we are set up is that we monitor it all the way from the moment it leaves the end user location till the end, right? So latency, if I just need to call one technical aspect of it, is something which is really remarkable in the entire suite. The strategy, since last year, beginning of last year, we became 100% indirect, right? So we are not dealing with end users direct from a, I would say, a sales point of view. Does that mean that we don't visit end customers direct? That is not at all the point, but we are dealing through an ecosystem of partners. We're dealing through an ecosystem of partners from which we, I would say, demand two important things. And that is that the loyalty, which works both sides, right? And for me, loyalty stands with being pragmatic as well. So never, ever will we say, if you sell Netskope, you cannot sell something else. That is not the point. What we are saying is that we're in this fight together. And I use the word fight deliberately because this is not an easy sell. For all of those that have been selling firewalls, routers, and switches, and I'm quite sure there were a few of us that have been doing that for way too long time, it is something totally different. Selling a SASE SSE project takes a long time, and it also demands that we sit with customers and we listen to what we want instead of telling them what it is we think they need, right? So this is what I understand on the loyalty. And the second thing is that we are too small of a company to not stick with what we have promised to our channel. We are not here to, I would say, make promises and then pull back, give you deal registrations, and then a week after say, hey, well, we find another reason to give it to partner A or B. We are not the size of the company, and we do not have the culture to just, I would say, start playing that kind of tricks, that kind of games. We have now signed up 30 partners all over the region, and the region became bigger as we moved through the years. So I'm talking about the region which is now the DACH region, Northern Europe, Benelux, and Eastern Europe. We have signed up combined 30 partners. And I think if you would get in touch with any of those 30 partners, I think the transparency and the loyalty is for sure something I hope they would mention when it comes down to what they think about the partnership about Netskope. The second thing, and this is what I call the true partnership, is that we will do whatever it takes to make sure that you guys get enabled up to the level where you feel comfortable selling to our combined end customers. Like I said, if we are convinced that our partners know and have the knowledge in order to sell this product the right way, we know that the success is just around the corner. Where we see problems or where we see frustrations popping up, it is just because of the fact that sometimes the knowledge is not there to sell that product in the right way. Hence the fact the expectations on both partner side and customer side are wrong, and that leads to problems which we need to sort out after that anyway. But like I said, if there is something you need to remember from this slide, I would say it's fun internally, and we try to make it as much fun as we can externally towards our partners and end customers as well. The product does what it needs to do. The strategy is indirect, and a true partnership is what we stand for. So next slide, please, Daniel.
Can I comment a bit, maybe?
Yeah, sure you can.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that in terms of the sales cycle, it can be everything from 3 months to 12 months, right? The reason why Xavier mentions that this is a fight is that the way of thinking for CISOs and CIOs, you know, we need to educate them together, right? Because it's a quite comprehensive platform with a lot of security features and networking in it. So we melt network and security into one platform, right? And can solve a tremendous number of use cases for the customer, right? So it's about where do you want to start, dear customer, right? And this is why it it can be everything from 3 months to 12 months, educating the customer and making sure you identified all the right use cases, because the platform can do so much. That's all I wanted to elaborate on.
All right. Then, as any other company, we are continuously listening to the market about what technologies are being used, where we think the future is going. So acquisitions are part, I'm not going to say of our daily modus operandi, but once in a while we are announcing a couple of acquisitions, which we then integrate into the portfolio as soon as humanly possible. The two most recent one were a company called Woodcloud, which is on IoT, and then we have Infiat, which is zero trust security network optimization, or borderless WAN, as we call it. They happened anywhere between, I would say, 4 and 6 months ago. And we are doing a very good job, I have to say personally, and integrating that into the current portfolio. So next slide, please, Daniel. All right, a bit more of a complex, way too overloaded slide, but it more or less shows you a little bit the same than what Neil has showed in his presentation, which was way more fun to look at because it was simpler to memorize. But this is basically what we called our new edge global coverage. It's about our data centers and management planes we have everywhere in the world. Neil mentioned a couple of locations which we have. Basically, the principle is that we put our investment money where we see the opportunities rising. At present, we have our data plane based in Stockholm with way more enough capacity to, I would say, secure and cover everything which is happening in Scandinavia as of today. But needless to say that as we start building and taking that region to another level, there will be more locations popping up, right? The most recent one that actually proves that we just follow the business movements is that we have just put in a second DP into Switzerland, because we had some very sizable customers in Switzerland which said, hey guys, all good, but if we would ever be hit by, and that is caused by what happened in Japan a while ago or quite a few years ago, if we would be hit by an earthquake, how can we make sure that our business continuity stays? So we took that into account. We opened a new DP, a new data plane, 70 kilometers away from the other. So we secured business continuity there. And we will keep doing that, and we will keep growing that network with more orange dots as we move through the next couple of months, quarters, and years. Next slide, please, Daniel. I'm not going to stand still too long with this. But for those of you, and I don't know, Nancy and Alina, if that presentation is going to be shared with the audience later on. But if you would look into the vertical segments we are presenting here, there are a couple of very, very sizable names in there. And again, this is not a US-centric slide. If we just take manufacturing, I think that half of what you find back in manufacturing has an HQ in Europe. The same for financial, and we are working on the rest of the pillars to make sure that we can get some very, very sizable reference customers on our side over the next couple of quarters and months. Next slide, please, Daniel. All right, so I think I'm stayed way within the time given. I would like to say again, as a wrap up, that is that we cannot do it without our partners. We are 100% depending on how we work with our partners. Hence the fact we cannot make promises we're not going to stick to. If you would decide you would like to explore this more, Alina and Daniel are the persons to reach out to in order to get that going. But again, we do not have the luxury nor the arrogance to not make this a success, knowing the phase where we are in. So that being said, Alina, I would say the floor is yours.
Thank you, Xavier. And I would like just to remind everyone on the call to place your questions in the chat if you have any. So good morning, everyone. My name is Alina Todiras, and I'm the channel manager in the Nordics. And today, basically, you heard from Neil and Xavier why Netskope and why partner with us. And I will just show you how to do that and explain a little bit about our partner program. Daniel, thank you so much. So our partner program is called Evolve, and actually it's quite fresh. We listen to our partners globally, and we launched a new program back in March, and we have 3 partner levels, so authorized, gold, and platinum. And I want to echo what Xavier said earlier, that we do have a indirect model at Netskope. So we have a two-tier go-to-market. So we sell via distribution and our partners. When you come in as a partner, basically, there's two ways to do that. We have a conversation and you want to, let's say, test a bit the product, play with it before you go into becoming a partner, into signing the contract. Or if you want to move full speed ahead, we can straight away work on a contract. And again, you'll get access to the demo tenant and play a bit with the technology. And also, you would get then access to partner portal and to a lot of trainings that we have. So for the sales track, for the technical part, I just also want to mention that everything we do to enable our partners, so the demo tenant, all the trainings, all the even instructor-led trainings, everything is free of charge for our partners. We just want to make sure that we give you all the tools that are available for you to go out there and position Netskope SaaS solutions with confidence to your customers. Daniel, yeah, I think we're running a bit behind time, so I will go a bit fast. Again, the 3 levels, as I said, authorized, gold, platinum, which come with the separate requirements. We do recognize that, of course, the opportunities are different depending on the market size. And therefore, we have divided the countries into mature and emerging. If we look at EMEA, we have really 2 countries in in mature, and all the rest fall under emerging. So if we look at Northern Europe specifically, all the countries are under emerging, and you can see that the requirements are also more lenient. If we are making any changes to so this is the first iteration of the Partner Evolve program. So if we are to make any changes in the future, you will always get at least 4 months notice from us. So to give you enough time to reach the requirements. And we do review let's say the partner. So we have a compliance check once a year. And our fiscal year runs from February until end of January. So basically we review the partners in February at the beginning of the fiscal year, and we then promote you to the next level if you hit the requirements. Let's move to the next slide. And as Xavier also said, I would like to add to this, we have the deal registration system in place, and we encourage partners to involve us early, and also the other way around. So what you will see here, I just want to explain the difference. Deal registration initiated by partner, that's number 1. So when you submit the deal registration, or the other way is when our sales manager, for instance, brings a deal to a partner that they think that would contribute in a great amount to the deal, then actually our account manager, so Daniel, for instance, would give you a deal protection. And in both scenarios, you'll be notified and you will know that you are the partner of choice. So very transparent. And in terms of enablement, just as I mentioned earlier, we have 2 tracks, basically the sales one. On the sales side is very light. I would say it's just 2-hour training, very easy. We do have also a series of webinars where you can learn more on the sales side, like how to pitch Netskope, use cases, and so on. And for the technical part, it's actually if it starts from the administrator and going down. You can take different levels of trainings, hands-on workshops, instructor-led trainings, which lead to the exams that are proctor exams at Pearson VUE. So there's the moment you become a partner, you'll have access to our academy, and you can start with these steps. And I would also share a SE onboarding guide. So a lot of tools for you to be comfortable to position Netskope. And now the fun part. I hope you guys are awake, and I am ready to check that. I have 3 questions today, and if you listen carefully to the presentation, to the today's session, then I hope you can answer the questions that are coming up. And just one important note: please write your answer in the chat, and the first correct answer will be winning a really nice, smart backpack, Netskope branded backpack. Okay, let's go. Daniel, let's go with the first question. So, very easy. In which Gartner Magic Quadrant is Netskope a leader? Please, I'll give you a few seconds to write your answers in the chat. Connie, are you helping me monitor?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Do we have any answers yet? Connie, to move to the...
No, we haven't.
Not
So
yet.
we'll be waiting for a few more seconds.
All right. Let me remind you, we have a Netskope branded smart backpack for the person that answers the first in the chat. Oh, the chat is disabled. Okay. Okay, in the Q&A box. Apologies for that. Kim helped us. Connie, okay, perfect. Yes.
We do
All
have
right.
one.
Yes, we have a winner. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next one. So if you listen to my presentation, I think it will be a very easy one to answer this one. So what are the 3 levels in the Netskope Evolve Partner Program? Again, please, first question in the chat, in the Q&A will win the backpack. And one more thing that I forgot to mention is that please write your full name so we know how to find you afterwards to get in touch with you for the gift.
Yeah. I'll be sending them a chat. So please let me know.
All right, let's give it. I don't see any. Was that the hard question? I don't see any any answers yet. So what are the 3 levels in the Netskope Evolve Partner Program? In the Q&A, Niels, please, I see something is happening with the chat, Connie. Okay.
Yes, so everyone can type their answer in the Q&A section instead of the chat.
I think I kept repeating chat, so everyone tried to go there. All right, Niels, if you know the answer, please put it in Q&A. And okay, and yeah, in the sake of time, please, Daniel, let's move on to the next one. So how many years is Netskope in business? If you listen to the introduction from Daniel, I think that could be a very easy one.
It's a hard one, Alina.
Is it?
So we have a winner.
Yeah, we have our 3 winners,
Oh, yeah.
I guess.
Okay, perfect. So I think, Connie, I can see the answer, so I can announce the winners. So for the first question, which Gartner Magic Quadrant we are leader in, it's SSE, and the winner is Peikio. I don't know the full name, so if you can type your full name, that would be great, so we can find you and send you the backpack.
I think it's Peter Koch, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for the second question, indeed, it's the 3 partner levels we have are authorized gold and platinum, and Niels Walgren is the lucky winner today. And actually for the how many years Netskope has been in business, it's 10 years indeed. And our lucky guest, Peikio, again, Peter, I guess that he is winning the second backpack. So,
Congrats.
All right, congratulations to the winners. Daniel, over to you.
Yeah. So with that, we are almost out of time. I'm here based in Copenhagen, in Tuborghavn, and for those of you that are interested in knowing more about us and getting a deeper talk about a partnership, We will share a link here in the chat in a sec. I think Connie will be sharing that, where you can book a meeting with me.
Yes.
And we can have.
Can everyone see the link now on the chat?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's visible. Thank you, Connie.
Okay, thank you.
Great. And then we can have a good business discussion as well. We will also be sharing the slides from today. I think that will be going out today, right, Nancy?
We will share the deck and the recording afterwards.
And the recording.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Well, with that, we just want to say thank you, and we're here to win some business together with you. And I hope this has created some interest. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.